Yo, what's up guys, it's Tbag and I'm back with part 2 of the interview that I'm having with Almighty Deck, the one and only leaker that's gonna give us information in this part 2 of the interview about Battlefield Bad Company 3. Now, Deck, a lot of people wanted to know what Battlefield 2018 will be. Initially it was gonna be Bad Company 3, and then you stated that Battlefield World War II will be Battlefield 2018. So when will we see Battlefield Bad Company 3? Because a lot of people are very excited about Bad Company 3.
Well, to begin to answer that question, I would have to say that a bit of the confusion comes in the sense that my source is assigned to the Bad Company project, so there was a bit of confusion as to when that game would come out. And reaching out to the other studio, we know that the World War II game is coming out first, but now that we know that, it's safe to say that the Battlefield Bad Company 3 game should come out in 2019 as a yearly release, as we wouldn't really expect it to be pushed along any further, because it's, from my sources' information, it looks like it's coming to be a very polished game.
Okay, that's very good news for all the Bad Company lovers out there, including myself. So, to summarize it, we will have Battlefield 2018, which will be Battlefield World War II in, let's say, October of 2018. And a year after, we'll presumably get Bad Company 3, right?
Absolutely, and I think this comes with the spacing of DLC, with how Battlefield 1's DLC was spaced a little too far out, and this time around, Battlefield World War II's DLC will be a little bit more tightly packed for a full year of content to keep people playing the continuous year until the next Battlefield title releases.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Like a little bit more longevity in the game. Let's talk about the campaign. Bad Company 3, or at least the Bad Company series are obviously known for like more the fun factor of Battlefield, but obviously because of the campaign with the main protagonist and however what kind of shenanigans they are doing and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of the Bad Company series, and I'm very interested, and I hope you can answer this. I'm very interested to hear what kind of like direction DICE are gonna take in regards to the campaign, because we know that you already mentioned it will take place kind of like a Vietnam/Cold War era style, but we do know that Bad Company 2 ended in like modern times. So how is that gonna play out?
Gotcha. So this is a very interesting question, and I think one of the commenters in one of my videos hit it right on the nail. And I don't know if he has any information or if he just kind of like assumed right, but he definitely did, in the sense that I don't know if it's Sweetwater or one of the other soldiers who during Bad Company 2 mentioned his days in the Vietnam War. So we're gonna see a campaign that features him retelling the stories of Vietnam, kind of like flashbacks, and we'll move from flashbacks to the mission that they're currently on, which is why Battlefield can kind of move itself from Vietnam to Cold War era type conflicts. And this gives DICE, of course, liberty for multiplayer maps, which is the biggest plus for them.
That's very smart of them. So one of the soldiers from the main squad will have flashbacks, and those are the missions you're playing in.
Yes.
And that takes directions from Vietnam all the way to the Cold War, or even beyond the Cold War. What kind of time period will be in?
So we're looking at the flashbacks primarily in the Vietnam War and the mission that they're currently in the Cold War. So you're going to flash back in between. So you're completing one mission in the contemporary time for the squad, which would be the Cold War era, and you're going back to Vietnam and completing more missions via that. So you're getting a taste of both.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds really good. And this is just a little bit for myself, since like I already mentioned, I'm a big Bad Company fan. Will we see the OG squad? Like every one of them, squad? Sarge and Preston and Haggard and Sweetwater, all four of them.
Without a doubt, we'll see them. Perhaps not in the flashbacks, we'll just see one of them. But when we alternate from the flashbacks back to the contemporary squad, we will have a squad back. Okay, so we'll get the jokes and we'll get like the camaraderie between them.
I love
which
that.
We've all come to know.
Yeah, exactly. And will we have the same voice actors? Because that's also a very big deal.
As far as voice actors go, I'm not sure at all. I think those specifics are lost to the position that my source is in, but the characters are definitely in line.
Okay. Okay, now that's good news. I can work with that. Now let's talk about a little bit more to the multiplayer. Obviously, it's a Battlefield game. Multiplayer is a big thing. And the biggest thing you mentioned in your initial leak is about the gunplay. Now, a lot of people like the gunplay from, for example, Battlefield 4 way over the gunplay from Battlefield 1. And you already mentioned Battlefield 2018, which is going to be World War II, will have similar gunplay to Battlefield 1's. What kind of gunplay are we going to see in Battlefield Bad Company 3?
So we're going to see gunplay that's reminiscent to Battlefield Bad Company 2, although it will be a little bit more it will gravitate more towards the style of Battlefield 4 in the sense that the engine is really what forms the gunplay. And DICE LA, who are the developers of Bad Company 3, the reason why they're taking this approach is because they've spent so much time already fixing that engine, that at least that version of the Battlefield Frostbite engine, so they're the most familiar with it back from the CTE. So it makes sense that they're using this variation of the Frostbite engine for Battlefield Bad Company 3.
So yeah, that makes sense a lot. And are we gonna, for example, just to get my head around it a little bit, are we gonna see, like, do we have the possibility to tap fire again? Because I know in Battlefield 1 that's not really an option. That tap firing is not a thing. It's all random bullet deviation. Are we gonna see tap firing options like Battlefield 4, for example?
Absolutely. And to kind of add on to the gunplay mechanics, we're gonna have the return of bullet drop, which is what I feel like a few people have been missing.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
And I think the snipers will I think they'll split 50-50 for the people that don't like the bullet drop, that think it's a little too hard, and those that love the authenticity that comes with the bullet drop to guns and the skill gap that it adds onto the game.
Exactly, yeah, I got you right there. For example, to talk about the Bad Company series in regards to, for example, Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 1, sniping is a little bit different on those games. For example, in Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 4, it's very fast-paced. You can quick scope and you can do extreme fast maneuvers, for example. And in Battlefield Bad Company series, it was a little bit more slower paced and a little bit more methodical, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
What is going to be the sniping gameplay like more towards? Like the Bad Company series, like the bread and butter Bad Company series, or more Battlefield 4/Battlefield 1?
We're definitely reverting back to a little bit more of a passive role for the snipers, much like Bad Company.
Yeah, so we're gonna, like you said, we're gonna see more bullet drop. Are we gonna see a slower bullet velocity? I believe so, because in Battlefield 1 right now it's extremely fast.
Gotcha. To answer that, I think it'll be fast, but just due to the facticity of the setting. So we're looking at more modernized weapons. So we're gonna look for a little bit more authenticity for the bullet velocity. So although it'll be a little bit faster than what it should have been in World War I, the reason why bullet velocity is increased in Battlefield 1 is because nobody wants to shoot a sniper from a mile away that'll take years to get there, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of done for the sake of gameplay.
Exactly.
So I don't think we'll see a change in the velocity per se, but bullet drop should affect how somebody moves between their targets when they're sniping.
Yeah. And how about the sweet spot mechanic that we currently have in Battlefield 1? Will that make a return in either Battlefield 2018 World War II or Bad Company 3, or you don't have any information on that?
For World War II, I'm not sure about that specific. Although for Bad Company 3, I can assume that with this being a completely different studio, they're going to have a completely different way of approaching the sweet spot mechanic.
Okay, so we're gonna see something like the sweet spot mechanic, but entirely different from the Battlefield 1 mechanic.
Perhaps we'll have the point where the damage of a sniper rifle falls under at a certain range.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I got you. Okay, that's very interesting. Now, let's talk about the maps. First of all, how many maps are we gonna see with the release of Bad Company 3? I presume, like any other Battlefield title, we're gonna launch with 10?
Absolutely.
Okay, 10.
We're launching with 10 base.
That's the 10 base maps. And about the maps, obviously you said Vietnam War, Cold War era. What kind of, because in your leak you talked about the kind of maps, more close quarters, more Battlefield Bad Company style maps. Can you talk a little bit more in depth about that?
Absolutely. So we're going to see, of course, like, I guess the biggest maps will be featured in the Vietnam scape. where it's huge and you're going through these jungle maps and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the majority of the maps, apart from the Vietnam ones, which I can imagine, I'd say a good 4 of them will be huge, like not huge, but bigger than small maps. So we're looking at 4 Caspian size, maybe Operation Firestorm size maps.
Yeah.
And the other maps we're looking at more Grand Bazaar, Metro, Lockers, like that type of map.
So a little bit more infantry orientated.
Yeah, infantry with LAVs. So we're not, and tanks of course, but we're not looking at something like all-out warfare where we're getting tanks, helicopters, jets all in the same battlefield. Because of course this is a Bad Company game, so we're not going to have the jets entirely.
Yeah. Speaking about the vehicles, like you said, we don't have any jets. We will have LAVs and tanks, and I presume jeeps and just transport vehicles and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
How about boats? Because I know for example, like you said, it's not going to be an all-out war. So we're going to stay to like the LAVs, transport vehicles, and tanks, or are there like some vehicle elements? Like, for example, a Behemoth type mechanic that we'll have a big surprise with?
Absolutely not. Although, I guess we will see the return of amphibious vehicles, much like the Amtrak, where it could go in water, as well as the IFV, I believe, where it could go in the water. So it was an amphibious type vehicle.
Yeah. And I just mentioned the word Behemoth. For example, in Battlefield 4 we had a big new thing called Levolution, you know, where you can alter the playground of the map, and in Battlefield 1 we had a big new mechanic that came with the Behemoth for the losing side. Are we gonna see something like a big event like a Levolution or a Behemoth or something like that in Bad Company 3, or even World War 2 to fall back a little bit to the Battlefield 2018 title?
Well, to the 2018 title, we'll definitely see Behemoths make a return.
Okay.
We'll definitely see that. Destruction for the Battlefield Bad Company game. They're going heavy on it. They're not going to introduce a Behemoth. They're not, because they want it to be a game that is reminiscent of Battlefield Bad Company. They want to stay true to it, and to do that, they have to go all out on destruction.
Yeah.
So I don't think that Levolution will be in the game in the sense that it's one grand scripted event. More so, a bunch of things that you can do throughout the map that can completely change how the map looks at the end of it. If you have just hammered it with grenades, with RPGs, with LAVs, with tanks and whatnot.
I got you. So is it the destruction? Is it similar to Battlefield Bad Company 2, or did they even expand upon this level of destruction?
So the level of destruction is very much a determinant of the engine, and just due to the facticity of the engine now, we won't be able to have the destruction of Bad Company 2, although the mimicking of it can be done by expanding on the destruction that we find in Battlefield 1.
Okay, that's very interesting. And are we, for example, in Battlefield 1 we did see a lot of micro destruction, like a little very detailed destruction, if you will. Something like that will return?
Absolutely. We're gonna see micro level destruction all around Battlefield Bad Company 3 in hopes that it helps mimic the macro destruction that we saw in Battlefield Bad Company 2.
I got you. Awesome. Now let's talk about, we talked about the vehicles. Let's talk a bit about the guns, because obviously the time period being set in Vietnam / Cold War era and stuff like that, will we see, I presume so, but I'm just double checking with you, are we gonna see the classic AK-47, the classic M16A1 type rifles?
As far as specifics go, it's safe to assume that we're going to see the traditional guns come back, although we will have, kind of like how Bad Company is a very light-hearted franchise, we'll perhaps see some fun weapons in the sense that Battlefield Hardline kind of had their taser, and it's not too far off there to believe that the Bad Company series is going to come back with a bang, in the sense that they're going to market it as a very fun shooter.
Yeah.
So, but with a good enough skill gap, very similar to Battlefield 4, and to have this fun aspect, we're going to have the addition of weapons that, for example, are either prototypes or weapons that aren't conventional to you.
Okay, that sounds like Bad Company to me, and so it has more of that fun element, basically.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's very good. Now, you mentioned in Call of Duty Battlefield World War II, Battlefield 2018, in regards to premium. You also mentioned loot boxes and microtransactions will be cosmetic only in Battlefield 2018, being Battlefield World War II. Are we gonna see the same thing in Bad Company 3, or no real confirmation on that part?
Gotcha. As far as customization goes, we should see how Battlefield Bad Company 3 mimics Battlefield 4. If not, it takes it a step further with customization. Due to the fact that it's a very lighthearted game. It doesn't take itself seriously, and a big part of it will be the fun aspect. And what's more fun than customizing your soldier, customizing your guns and whatnot? As far as how that goes via cosmetics and via loot boxes and microtransactions, there's nothing set on it currently. Although it would be safe to say that if with Battlefield World War I and World War II, if these titles show that cosmetics only in loot boxes are fine, there's no reason to assume that EA would change their strategy, much like Overwatch.
Yeah, exactly. No, I got you. That seems very EA-like. Let's put it like that. But that's not necessarily bad, because everybody knows loot boxes that are pay to win are pretty garbage, and customization in cosmetics is not necessarily a bad thing. So we'll have to wait and see how they're gonna do that.
Absolutely.
About the game modes, yeah, go on.
To expand on that, it's not necessarily bad, although there is the question of morality behind it, in that you're paying $60 for a full game. You're not quite getting it.
As long as we won't see the shitstorm we got with Star Wars Battlefront 2.
With Star Wars Battlefront, yeah.
But I'm sure EA are smart, so I don't think they will go down that path. Anyway, about the game modes, you mentioned obviously in your leak that Rush, like you said, it's the bread and butter of Bad Company. Will it revolve around, like, how it's gonna be tailored around which game modes in Bad Company 3?
In Bad Company 3, all the maps should play extremely well on Rush. So I'd say that the maps are going to be perhaps changed. So we're not going to have a, kind of like how for Battlefield 4 they went back and they fixed a lot of the Rush maps to make it better. We're going to see that on Bad Company, where they're going back, which was Dice LA, by the way, that did all that fixing on Battlefield 4, so they know how to fix the Rush map.
Exactly.
So we're going to see that same thing on Bad Company 3, where they're going to tailor the maps for Rush, but they're going to also make sure that it runs perfectly well on Conquest, because everybody that's going to buy a Bad Company game expects Rush to be extremely well. Whereas when you buy Battlefield 4, you don't expect Rush to be amazing, you expect Conquest to be amazing.
Exactly, yeah. I got you. And speaking about game modes, obviously we'll have, you mentioned Conquest, you mentioned Rush, obviously. What can we expect more besides TDM and Domination? What can we expect more?
Gotcha. You can expect the Squad Obliteration game mode, which perhaps might have a name change. And we should also expect the Operations game mode to come back.
Of course,
It's become a fan favorite at this point, and almost every Battlefield title that will come out in the next 6 years should include this as... It should go kind of in a pecking order, where Conquest 1, Rush 2, Operations 3, and then obviously the generic game modes that you have as well. Operations is a very big part of DICE now.
Of course, and understandable, because Operation is pretty amazing with all the big events and everything. But speaking about, you said like the more generic game modes like TDM and Domination, but are there more like, I'm a big fan, for example, of the game mode called Gunmaster and Air Superiority. Well, I can presume that Air Superiority won't be a thing in Bad Company 3 as there are no jets, but how about Gunmaster?
There's no talk about any of the fun game modes, although it's safe to say that with the addition of DLC, we'll see fun game modes come in. And to talk about Air Superiority specifically, although Bad Company 3 doesn't have planes, doesn't have jets, we might be able to see it in a DLC with the attack choppers and the scout choppers.
Okay, so that's very interesting. I'm gonna all like round it up a little bit right now. I'm gonna talk about, we talked about Battlefield 2018 having gore or not, and you said it was very clean. I presume Bad Company 3 will go the same route?
Absolutely. It's a lighthearted game. They're not going to introduce gore to the extent that some people would want.
Okay, that's understandable. And I'm going to finish this interview with one more question that might be a little bit touchy for some die-hard Bad Company fans, and that's about the prone mechanic, because we all know, or at least the Battlefield Bad Company fans know, that in the Bad Company series we didn't really have a prone mechanic. We can go like upright obviously and crouch, but we couldn't go prone. How is that in Bad Company 3?
So Bad Company 3 is a shooter that's releasing in 2019, presumably. And just due to the environment that we're currently in, almost all shooters have prone, and it'd be ridiculous to not have prone within the game. So I think I've answered this in a YouTube comment below in one of my videos, but the prone will be being introduced into the Bad Company series, and I don't think it's for the worst. I think the mechanic is not missed. I think that the addition of this mechanic has really opened up a layer of gun and game.
No, I agree. I don't think in like you said, if they got rid of prone to go back to the roots of Bad Company, it wouldn't necessarily be a good thing. I like the fact that they keep the prone function for the Bad Company games. With that being said, Almighty Deck, thank you so much for the interview. Thank you so much for the information that you gave me and gave the viewers. I would like to thank you. For all the viewers at home who's watching this, be sure to check out Almighty Deck's channel. Obviously be linked in the description below. Go check him out. He will be having Q&As and more informational videos about leaks and other types of content regarding Battlefield. So Almighty Deck, I would like to thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here. I mean, I hope to have more collaborations with you.
Of course,
and
bro.
we'll see.
Of course. And with that being said, guys, subscribe if you haven't already. More videos to come regarding Battlefield leaks and all that good stuff. And with that being said, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.